Hello, viewers. Well, it's round 4 of the F1 2020 season, the British Grand Prix. And again, today I'm joined by Tim. Hello, Tim.
Hi, Evan.
And we're going to be catching up on all of the action from the Grand Prix this weekend. Always a Grand Prix that, for me, has a lot of atmosphere. Do love these old circuits. And, we were talking about qualifying just before recording this podcast. And the circuit looked in such great condition, Tim, didn't it? I mean, it's a shame that I will say, actually, just before we start, it is one of those circuits where I think you miss the fans more than any other circuit so far.
You're so used to seeing the 150 odd thousand fans packed in, also with one of the most flamboyant infields with so much going on. One of the times I've been there for the race, there's things going on wherever you look over at Silverstone. So it was you really felt that lacking from the whole entire weekend on coverage on TV this time out. But it is what it is, and Silverstone still put on a great show. The track looks absolutely fantastic through the weekend, in the sunshine, particularly yesterday, and it's always great to see cars go through that section of Maggots and Beckett's and Chapel. So great that they've managed to put on a good show still without the fans this year.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, one thing it did pick up to me a little bit is the level of perfection of Formula One now. The track you can tell it's been relayed. It's super smooth. It's so perfect that often I hear Martin Brundle saying, about, the track surface isn't yielding enough grip for the cars. It almost feels like a complaint about the track not being perfect enough sometimes. And I think to myself, there was a moment where Lewis had a spin and they stopped the session. And I thought, why stop the session? There's a few bits of gravel on the track. We can't continue the session. But I just want a bit of imperfection in Formula One. I just feel it's so perfect. And it's got to that level of analysis now. And I think it's like we said before, if only there was no testing and the guys just had to go out there, you'd have a lot more instances, much like what happened in the race. But we'll get to that in just a moment. First big news, of course, Nico Hulkenberg being called back for Sergio Perez. Obviously, Sergio Perez has tested positive for COVID-19. Hulkenberg, firstly, it was good to see him back, at least in practice and quali.
Yes, it was. It's always, whilst it's great to see him back, it makes the whole point of having a test driver or a reserve driver a little bit redundant in Formula One still. Esteban Gutierrez and I can't remember the second reserve driver right now, but there were two options on the Mercedes list that Racing Point could have gone for, but no, they decided to go for somebody with most recent racing experience. Probably the right decision, and it was great to see him back in the paddock for this weekend. Just a shame that you couldn't see him in the race, but we'll come on to that.
Yeah, I did see Jenson Button putting his hand up saying "pick me" on Twitter, which was quite funny. I hadn't thought about it at first, and then it just seemed the right call to have Nico Hulkenberg in the car. Obviously, not much time to practice and get up to speed. One thing that I think a lot of people who don't understand motorsport might not understand is that when he was racing last season, surely he can just step into a new team and a new car, and it's easy. And actually, it's easy to get within that half a second range, but then after that, that's really where it's difficult to try maxing out your car. So it's a great challenge, but hopefully we'll see a bit more of Nico. I don't know quite what's going to happen with Perez. I mean, there's talk about Perez coming back next week, but with at least the 10-day quarantine, I just can't see that. No. The actual period of the COVID actually takes over 4 weeks. So if he's just got it, then I just can't see how he can return, not only for the next 70th anniversary race, but also onward from there. So we'll wait and see. We're going to move on. The qualifying, I guess, was dominated really by the pace of Mercedes at the front. I think, again, it was another clear example of that car is simply in another league this year. The Ferrari was a bit all over the place. A good performance from McLaren and I think solid from Renault. I think again, a good performance from Racing Point. I still call them that, don't I? It's because they're the same colour.
Yeah.
It's Racing Point. Though, as I say, I think Hulkenberg did the best he could. And also, I would say a standout performance from George Russell, who again was putting in some brilliant laps in qualifying there. And I think like a clear second ahead of Latifi. Good result from him. Onto the race then. I think kicking off the race, we've got a no start for Hulkenberg before the races even began, which was really bad news for him. There'll be some conspiracy theories around that probably as well. I've always got a conspiracy theory.
Don't know what you mean.
Exactly. Who knows why his engine didn't work? It just bad luck.
It is a shame, though, isn't it? I mean, all this technology in Formula One, the fact that they can't even get a car to start, I just feel like, come on, they need to make these cars a little bit more simpler, don't they? You know, it's just too complicated that they can't even just get the car to start. And it's a silly reason for not taking the grid, you know, but it is what it is.
I'm going to go into this because I think the problem is, and part of the conspiracy theories, there's about 150 people back at base that monitor these cars, and you have to ask yourself, why isn't the car? Now they might be able to turn the car on, run it might have broken down, but they won't know why then. So they need to find out how a car has all these people analysing it and then just doesn't work properly the next day. They've really got to get on top of that process, and I think that's why they said, let's just not run it. Let's find out where something is going wrong in the whole running of that car for it not to start, because I can't remember the last time a car didn't start a Grand Prix at all in this sense. I don't know if you know offhand, but it hasn't happened very often. No. And I can't remember the last time a car didn't start a race at all. So very unusual for Nico Hulkenberg, and very unlucky as well. So in a way, it's a bit of a dampener on the start. I was really looking forward to cheering him on today and seeing how he got on. Bit of action at the start, then it's going to start the race, obviously. Bottas, did he lift into turn one just to let Lewis through? I thought he was a bit easy on Lewis in turn one, if I'm honest with you. But he was a teammate, and they don't want to crash into each other. So it was a nice, clear lead for Lewis. A lot of action going on behind. I guess the first big incident, really, in those first few laps was, despite a lot of jostling going on, which was pretty dicey between the McLarens as well. But we had the first contact with Kevin Magnussen, who had a great start. He had his contact with Albon. What do you think of that? What are your feelings on it, Tim?
To begin with, I thought it was a racing incident. You saw some wonderful slow-mos of the gravel kicking up, which I thought was like, they certainly like to play that replay a couple of times. But the incident itself, it looked like Magnussen coming into the penultimate corner, he was a little bit offline, so that disrupted his entry into the final corner. Albon was going for a gap, 6 of one, half a dozen of the other, really. But in obviously Albon ended up getting a penalty. Perhaps one thing which Albon does need to do, as a lot of new drivers into the sport need to do, it's a Red Bull at the end of the day. He was going to overtake a Haas at some points, probably later on in that lap. Had he lifted off and not gone for that gap at that point, I feel that it was probably a deserved penalty. And I think next time, hopefully, he'll just take this as a learning again and just realise, wait for a better opportunity where he can make a cleaner pass.
It's funny. It's a very difficult one for a racing driver, difficult decision to make. I was having my little social race last week with a few of the guys, and at one point, probably about 9 laps into the race, there was a chap passing another into the barrier, and they had a very slow point entering Maggots, and I could have overtaken, but I thought, no, I'm going to hold off because my goal is to finish the race in one piece rather than get a sustained damage that simply takes me out of the race entirely. Had I been in it to win it, or felt that I had a chance of getting a podium, I would have gone flat through there and just held my breath, basically. I think where there is also an issue when you're a driver and you make a mistake, and I've made a mistake, I'm going to be slow. If you suddenly say, right, I'm going to then weave onto an apex and stop the guy getting past, you've got a mistake. You've got it coming. I think Kevin Magnussen knew he'd made the mistake. He did leave the door open. He wasn't up to speed, and Albon would have swiftly gone past him down the next straight. So in a way, I don't want to take that out of Albon. I would say to him, no, you did the right thing. Do it again. I wouldn't say slow down. I would say at a time like that, the car in front made a mistake, went off, whatever, lost a load of speed. You went for the gap. That's why I call that a racing incident, because if Kevin Magnussen was fully in control at all times, it was Albon's fault, but he wasn't. He'd lost control of the car for a moment, made a mistake, and that opened it up. So I think where Kevin's concerned, Albon was a quicker car. He was getting past Kevin should have known, I've made a mistake. Let's let Kevin pass. That's what I would have done. I'd have just said, I've made a mistake. I've gone a bit wide. Let him pass, and we all continue. The Red Bull's way quicker anyway. So, bit silly by all concerned, but it did absolutely ruin Albon's race after that. Just a word on Alex Albon at the moment. He's had a difficult time at Red Bull. Again, another driver. Now, Albon, I actually stand 100% behind Albon. He's a great quality driver. If he's not beating Max Verstappen, or at least on the same bit of track as him, it's because Red Bull don't want it to happen. Simple as that. There is something going on at Red Bull. I would want an investigation with an engineer as to why I've not got two drivers on the same piece of track. What is going on? And that's something that they need to investigate as a team, because, today they could have had two drivers on the podium, and instead they had one. And you have to ask yourself, what is going on with that car? It's very unusual. When you've seen the talent of Alex working his way up through the lower classes, he's every bit as quick as Lando Norris and George Russell. In fact, in Formula 2, had Alex not had a few issues earlier in the season, technical issues, he would have won the championship and beaten George as well. So definitely a quality driver. Red Bull need to stick with him, but they really need to understand what's going on with their car as well. And in fact, at the last race, after George raised the issue, Christian Horner did come out and say, actually, the issue in qualifying at Hungary was with Red Bull. They did make a mistake. And that was after George's comment about them making Alex look like an idiot.
Yeah.
So they know what's going on in these teams. And I think Red Bull today, that's one of the mistakes they've made in having their driver at the back and needing to struggle in this way. Really not much for Alex to do. He's got to go for it at this stage. But going on with the race, we had a bit of a boring patch, didn't we? We had where they're going round and round, and
although we did have Kvyat's crash.
I was just getting to that. Okay. Yes, yeah, a big off for Kvyat.
Yes, it was. They were saying on the commentary feed, Martin Brundle was convinced that it was the rear tyre deflated as he was going into the corner. Although that wasn't really sort of shown on the TV feed in any of the replay, so it's hard to say. So curious to see the post-race report later on to see whether the AlphaTauri did have a failing, or whether it was Kvyat's fault. But I thought his reaction was, smacking the camera out the way was amusing. A little bit of emotion from what is normally a rather droll sort of guy. but no, it took a bit of time for the race to get going, wasn't it? I think there was a comment that Martin said on the commentary saying we've had 18 laps so far and only 6 at racing speed so far. So it took a little bit of time to get going.
It did. I mean, that Kvyat crash, I just remember looking at the screen and seeing a ball of dust and thinking, wow, big one. Very unusual location. Never seen a crash there before, ever, in that way. I've seen a lot of racing. I've not seen one right there at that point. And that's why it took a long time to recover the car, because it was miles away from the usual recovery points. It's strange, wasn't it? Basically, Kvyat was on the wrong piece of track by there. He shouldn't be out there. That's very unusual. It did appear to me to be a bit of driver error in there as well, whatever happened. But we don't really know why. We'll have to wait till there's an investigation on that one. It was pointed out on Twitter, actually, that Codemasters should use that little bit of animation, put it in the game for an angry driver moment.
Definitely.
I think that definitely. We always love a bit of a camera slap.
Only when you get to level 12 though, and you've earned enough points. So it has to be an unlockable, not
unlockable emotions.
Absolutely.
That would be Formula One all over.
Yeah.
After that restart, and Grosjean going well. I've got in my notes. Grosjean was doing well. He was on the medium tyre. The cars around him were on the harder tyre. I was actually quite surprised at that stage that the cars had gone onto the harder tyre. I felt that it was always going to have another pit stop in it. People were trying to go very long, and there is a big difference between the tyres at Silverstone. And I was generally surprised. And he kept his position. He was on the grippier tyre, worked out well for him. But then we had the whole moving in the braking zone scenario. Grosjean, he does have that kind of emotional trigger in him, doesn't he? I feel I would love to know what his engineer tells him, because I do feel he's one of those drivers that must get told everything.
Bear in mind, he's the isn't he the head of the Grand Prix drivers? No, that's Alex Burks, but he's part of the. I think it's like the number 2 in the
Yep.
Grand Prix Drivers Association. So, how is that going to be reported at the next? I think they now do them over Zoom, don't they? The driver briefings. So interesting to see. But say he's he's an emotional guy, and he shows his racing craft on track most of the time, and likes to, as we all are, will have a competitive edge. He just needs to rein that in a little bit. But it was rare to see a flag shown for dangerous driving, and we got it twice, didn't we, in this race? So I think Stroll was also given the same flag, but it is rare to see. But I kind of quite like it as well. It shows that the drivers are pushing, and they're flaring up a little bit of emotion in the car.
There is. I mean, on the one hand, you like it. On the other hand, I just know that a man with Grosjean's experience really shouldn't be mucking around like that. He could cause a high-speed crash doing that kind of stuff, and it's funny actually. Grosjean had, in his early career, I felt he definitely had some speed, but I remember back after that crash in 2012, I think it was at Spa, where I think Johnny Herbert wanted Grosjean gone. He felt nothing could calm him down, and then he got some kind of counsellor to help him. He had some kind of counselling that helped him and control his mind and calm his mind. And clearly, I still feel that's an issue for him. He makes these errors every year, but somehow retains his drive no matter what he does. I think today he was quite lucky. I mean, the second movement against Daniel Ricciardo in particular was quite a heavy movement in a heavy braking zone, and could have easily ended up with both of them in the wall. So I think certainly he's going to need to look at that himself and really think about where his mind is. Definitely needs more calmness in the car, and maybe if he had a bit more calmness, his races might work out a bit more as well. It's almost like panicking. Just don't panic. Just let things take their course, and know when you're feeling racy. Know when you can go for it. I think sometimes when you're falling backwards, you've got this horrible feeling where you just have no speed and you just lose your confidence. And I think that's something he needs to really look at. Shame for Haas today that they lost Kevin Magnussen, because it would have been interesting to see where Kevin would have finished. There's definitely some more positivity in the team this year, though. They're definitely looking, but I just wonder where they would be with a different driver. So I think that's
other than Grosjean.
Other than Grosjean, yeah. I just feel that, when you look at the Drive to Survive last year, and you saw them with the new parts, and then they took each other out at the British Grand Prix last year, and you just have to wonder how Gunther Steiner can cope with that kind of situation.
Well, my hunch for 2021 is that Vettel will go to Aston Martin and Checo will go to Haas. You've heard it. You hear it here first.
You heard it here first, viewers. You heard it here first. I think that's a good call. I think Checo's relationship with the Racing Point team definitely isn't great, and that this is Lance Stroll's team, isn't it? It's going to be interesting to see what the relationship is. I mean, Vettel's if Vettel goes there, he goes there to develop the car, and they just recognise that Lance will be there. Lance will have the same equipment. But who knows? Maybe Sebastian will be happier in a team like that than he is at Ferrari. I mean, Ferrari doesn't seem to be a terribly happy place, and we don't really see much of the team anymore, do we? I mean, there's hardly.
Absolutely, but even in this race, Vettel scraped home in 10th only because of a couple of last-minute failures. And he just wasn't there the whole race, was he? I mean, what is going on at Ferrari? It's just fair play. Charles Leclerc had a decent race and amazing, ended up on the podium. But again, Ferrari, they're just the fact that they are openly saying that we're not going to win a race again until at least 2022. That is worrying times for Maranello.
Worrying times, major issues, a lot of heads are rolling.
Yeah.
They really have to ask themselves, how on earth did they end up where they are with the money that they've spent?
And the money that they are given.
Yes.
Let's not forget that. You know, they are given 100 million or so, whatever it is, directly from Formula One just because they're Ferrari. You know, when they're scraping with, I think they're only, 5-10 seconds faster than George Russell in a Williams, which no um, no criticism against Williams. But we all know they're having a challenging time themselves at the moment. But Ferrari should be doing better than that.
They should be doing better than that. It is a bad time for them, and I think they need a bit of a restructure, and that's what's going to take place there. You know what it is when an organisation becomes so fat, it's difficult seeing who's doing the job, who's blaming other people. Sometimes you've got a lot of red tape, and I think sometimes you need to streamline a bit and start again, and streamline the responsibility and the structure and who does what. And that's something that Mercedes got worked out years ago. I remember Ross Brawn talking about that. You know, we've got the structure built and we're going to move forward with the structure. And I think Ferrari, whatever's happened with the politics, they really need someone there with the strength to turn it all around. And we'll have to wait and see. But I feel it's tough for the guys you see in front of the camera, but it's not about them. It's about the management team and the hundreds of people back at base. And the funny thing is, I've been to a couple of Formula One teams. Renault and McLaren visited the mission control and everything, but we never tend to see that for Ferrari. I don't think I've ever seen the Ferrari mission control or setup that they have in
Very
quite the
few
same
people
way.
are allowed into Maranello,
Yeah,
but you're right. There's always been, I mean, within my world of working in the corporate world, and I've worked for big organizations for most of my career. There's this thing about company culture, and I've always stamped on about it's so important to get the culture right. It leads from the top of a business through the people you hire, and through that you get great productivity out of it. And that's what I kind of look at when you look at like Mercedes. I see great leadership. Everybody is like this harmonious unit of people, and they all work great together, and they get a great product out of it as well. And then similar, I say the same thing about days of Jordan, now Racing Point. You see that there's great camaraderie between that unit of people. Look at Ferrari. It's the Italian flamboyance, and it's like the emotion and the leadership changes come and go, and there's just no real sort of strict culture within the business that I certainly sort of see. And the fact that they've only just come into the world of esports and they're embracing that world with the official F1 esport championship, and I kind of feel like they're starting to come around on social media to be a little bit more sort of jokey, so to speak. We need to see that more, and that leadership needs to come from the very top. I'm not sure that Bonotti is the right person for it, and I kind of feel like they need a non-Italian to lead that team, to really sort of bring that sort of structure together, so that they can then move forward as a business into 2022.
I think you're right. I think the call for non-Italian, sometimes it helps to have different nationalities working together that are good at different things,
Yeah.
and that bring them together. Even sometimes it's nice to have someone who's completely disconnected for all the employees there, who can say, "I'm the manager, and this is how we're going to do this." I've not grown up with those people. It's one thing someone who's worked their way through the company forever, and is sort of family friends with everybody who works there and doesn't want to rock the boat too much. But sometimes you do need. Right now, they need to rock the boat, and they need someone there who's going to say, "Right, this needs to be done," and they need to work out who's doing their job and who's not. Because clearly, a lot of people being paid a lot of money and they're not doing a good enough job by half. I will just say, actually, on the esports front, Ferrari have actually launched their own esports initiative, which is on the Team Viva website this week, working with Assetto Corsa, and they're creating their own Ferrari esports championship. Now, I noted that the prize of winning this competition is to join the Ferrari esport team, which means you get to race with Tanitsa, the Ferrari F1 esports champion, as part of a teammate. but they don't actually give you a prize. There's no visits to Maranello. There's no visits to races. You might get a Zoom chat with Charles Leclerc. You certainly won't with Sebastian Vettel because he's just not interested. And you basically get nothing. You don't get paid. You don't get anything out of it. But if you play and you give your whole life to it, then you get to join Ferrari and say that you're in Ferrari. And I just think this is Ferrari all over. You're this massive, great team. You should have you should have a proper professional organisation running your esports. It's part of your brand. Where's all that money going?
It's weird because when you look at the comparator, which is Brendan Lee, you know that he's part of the Mercedes Formula One setup. Really, it's like an extension of. He does some of the pre-race build-up hot laps that you've sort of seen on the social media channels. You'd kind of want the equivalent of that in Ferrari, wouldn't you? That'd be the prize in my eyes.
You know what? I don't. You're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. They need to figure it out. I mean, look at Mercedes there. I mean, obviously Ferrari won it last year, but it was more down to the fact they had the right guy there rather than they had a whole structure behind them. I don't know. I feel that they just, as a company, they need to completely restructure and look at what they're doing. But right now, they're in embarrassing shambles. Now, moving on then. So the race obviously it went through phases, didn't it? We had Albon pitting probably about 20 laps from the end and hoping to come through the field on medium tyres towards the end of the race. But then it was a bit quiet until those last couple of laps when Valtteri Bottas had tyre blowout. Was it front left tyre? Delamination.
Absolutely. Tim. I think the key thing, they didn't mention this on the commentary, but certainly at the points when Bottas's tyre went, but lap 17, when they all pitted and went onto the hard tyre, it was commented that the hard tyre will last 40 laps. So that took us up to lap, was it 30 laps? I can't remember now, but I remember looking at it thinking, well, that would take them up to about lap 47. There'll be a window that I'd have to extend the length of that tyre a little bit longer, or they'd have to pit again. So I kind of feel like Pirelli, I think they were advised correctly, but we then saw the delaminations left and right. Kind of reminded me of 2013 when it happened again to the Mercedes and the Ferraris, I think, back then. But it certainly made the last few laps very exciting.
Yeah, it certainly did. I mean, at first they showed Bottas, and you think, "Damn, there's Bottas. That's it. End of his race. He can't get back into it." Then it showed Lewis. Oh, Lewis has gone. No, it wasn't really. They got mixed up. Then Carlos Sainz, and you saw the car bottoming out quite heavily as it went into the pits. And then Lewis went.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness, what's going on? How many more tyres are going to go on this last lap? Action.
Crucially, Max Verstappen pitted.
Exactly.
And I was thinking, Mercedes might just take the free pit stop. It's what they got to lose from that. But then was it Bono came on the radio and said, Lewis, don't go for the hot lap, just bring the car home. Okay, well, they've got it in control. And it's like, oh my God, no! And then he literally scraping around the track on the last lap, and certainly some heart in the mouth moments there.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it was a bit of action. I've not seen a car finish like that in a long, long time. I think probably since the 80s when you had cars limping around. Okay, I guess you even think about Damon Hill in Hungary, and was it 97? Yes. When he got stuck in third gear or something, and it was awful. Anyway, but no, I mean, Lewis was just hanging in there. He had a bit of consistent pace, and Max, that stop on Red Bull. I mean, they did speak to Max afterwards. He did say, "Look, my tyres were probably in the same position. It was worth a stop. So, I mean, my tyre could have blown as well. I couldn't really have done much more. I think." When you looked at Lewis and Valtteri, they had this heavy graining on the tyre. It didn't look good leading up to that point. So really, the carcass was definitely showing. So they definitely had the data, Mercedes. No excuse for that in that sense. Lewis did get out and make a comment afterwards. I thought it was a bit cheeky about Valtteri was pushing too hard and I wasn't. I thought, well, come on, Lewis, you went all of one lap further. I think you were pushing quite hard as well. So those two Mercedes, I will say, Valtteri was keeping Lewis honest up to that point. Lewis didn't shake him at all. He was just literally keeping on the edge of the sort of turbulent air, if you like. And I think it just showed how fast they were again. Very boring race for Max Verstappen up to that point, and then suddenly he's on the radio. Can we win it? The final lap. So
although he did remind his engineer to drink though, which was I thought was very amusing in amongst what was rather dull middle part of the race anyway. But great to see. One thing which I'm excited about, and I really hope that there was a comment from DC in the podium conversations at the end where they're planning to run softer tyres for next week's race, which I think was great. They're saying, "Oh, perhaps they might need to review that decision." I'm like, "Well, no, you just run softer tyres. It means you might have to stop 2 or maybe 3 times. Come on, guys, let's add some variety. It can't just be a nice, easy race. You do have options to pit multiple times to get the car to the end. So let's hope that there's no sort of last minute reprieve from Pirelli or Formula One to say, let's go for the safe option."
I think that's just what I was thinking about earlier when we talked about the perfection of the racetrack. Oh no, the tyres might wear out. What's going to happen? The computer system can't predict the exact lap when the tyres might burst. And what will we do? We might have to use judgment. We might have to just go for it and take a guess. What will we do? What if the tyres only last 25 laps? And the computer said they were going to last 27. What will we do? Poor Formula One teams. I am sick of the belly aching. You know what? I would love Pirelli to just randomise it and just say, there we go. Yeah. Like you say, though, as long as they've got practice, it really, they shouldn't even have tyre sensors on there. Take them off. No. Driver has to feel the tyres. Look at them. What do you think? Do you think the blistering will go, or do you think you'll be able to keep running with it? What do you think? What is your experience? What do you bring to it as a driver? Yeah. See, I don't want to ask Mr. Computer. No, Mr. Computer telling us what to do.
I feel like I've hit a nerve here, Alan.
My little rant of the day. I just feel sometimes that F1 has so much perfection, but if it's up to me, I'm going to push for those softer tyres next week, and let's hope they get them. And I think just to finish off the race, then really. So I mean, obviously another win to Lewis. I think that, dare I say it, I feel that it was a key moment in the championship today already. It's a shorter championship. It gives Lewis a good, I don't have the exact points in front of me.
30 points gap. He's on 88 points and Bottas is on 58 points.
So, I mean, that is an enormous gap now. You lose 25 points just like that. Good result for Max, Charles Leclerc. Daniel Ricciardo ended up 4th in the end.
Yeah.
So we didn't see that. That must have happened off.
I think it was because of Carlos.
Right.
But he must have overtaken Lando at some point as well, because I'm pretty sure he was behind Lando. So
yeah, he was behind Lando. So
I think our focus was all on Hamilton and Verstappen on the last lap. But I need to go back and see those last couple of laps again, just for the lower positions.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we didn't see that on the last lap, did we? But that must have been a nice move by Daniel. I put a smile on Daniel's face, no doubt about it for him. And it seems like Renault are finally getting going as well. They definitely seem to be stronger, though they struggled at the start. They've definitely got some good pace there. But I just kind of felt they were kind of boxed in, Renault, the whole race, behind either Stroll or the McLarens. I didn't really feel they got to show their true pace. But it was all controlled, of course, by the other teams, and they're controlling what they can do with a car. And like you said before, Tim, these cars are never flat out, are they? They're cruising. I think today was very measured by those teams, wasn't it? You could actually see that they weren't always pushing.
Absolutely. So, 4 races in, Mercedes, 4 wins. So, are we going to see them get a clean sweep across the season? I think at the moment it's looking pretty likely. I think, but they haven't done that yet. So perhaps they need that just to tick the box, so that they've done that one as well.
Absolutely. Well, I mean, Mercedes just already on 146 points in the manufacturers, 146 points already. I mean, just crazy, really. And I think that they're, dare I say it, nothing will change. It's just a bit of a straightforward season for them in box ticking exercise now. I just really hope they do let Bottas and Hamilton race, but I kind of feel that Hamilton's got such. By the time they do have a race, there's no pressure because if Hamilton's got the lead he has, he could literally come second for the rest of the year. He wouldn't do that, but when you get a lead like that, you've got control.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
I think the psychology from Lewis is all about qualifying. You have to beat him in qualifying, which is very, very hard to beat because that's one of his specialities is qualifying.
Yeah.
But it's all about defeating his qualifying mojo, and then you'll start to, chip away at him from there and go from there. Now, I'm just going to check. Now, we were very late again at questions. We got Marcel on Twitter here saying just about Red Bull. He says, honestly, I'd have done the same thing as Red Bull, even though in hindsight it was the wrong move. Maybe if Max stayed out, he would have gotten a puncher as well. Absolutely, Marcel. Well, that's pretty much what we said earlier. I think it's fair to say that Red Bull, they got their extra point. Second place, they'd have been over the moon at. Had he not stopped, they may have been at the limit of the tyre. So I think that it's one of those things. You just got to be happy with what you've got out of the day. But it was close, and I have to say Lewis was very, very lucky. And that concludes our chat of the race today. I guess the last thing is really a driver of the day for you, Tim. What's the driver of the day?
You know what? I hadn't even thought of that, which is quite so. Put me on the spot. I will go for. Might sound a bit of an odd one. I like to go for somebody that's unexpected, but I'm actually going to say Alex Albon purely because he's had what was an absolutely everything that could go wrong did go wrong for him today, and for him to come away from this weekend with 4 points, finishing in 8th, is I would say a bit of a self-confidence boost, I would have thought. So let's hope that he takes this, should we say, overall negative weekend, and it just improves him mentally, and hopefully next weekend he comes back with a better result.
Absolutely. I mean, I thought that was, dare I say it, he had to really push today. It was a tough day at the office for him, and he ended up with as good a result I think he could have asked for. For me, I think today, Daniel Ricciardo, I think he's in a middling car, and clearly he's worked his way through the field to come out 4th place at the end. Sometimes some of the best drives happen off camera, and clearly he needed to some measured overtakes here and there and come through when he needed to. So I think it was a good result for him, and I think that would be a bit of a confidence boost for him as well. Just missing out on the podium, I think that, like you say, good result all round. But that's it, viewers, for the British Grand Prix chat today. Do let us know your thoughts in the comments. Again, next time we will ask earlier for comments, and like you say, do get them in, and then we can talk about them here. Next week then, 70th anniversary British race. I feel I'd like to say, who do you think's going to win it, Tim?
It's going to definitely be one of the Haas drivers, I'd have thought.
One of the.
I don't know. I kind of I'm fascinated by these second races they're doing at the same circuits. I'm kind of hoping that instead of the national anthem, we get like a rendition of the F1 theme tune in some form. I'm just curious to see what they're going to do in terms of the start of the race next weekend with the 70th anniversary Grand Prix. So hoping there's going to be something a little bit special, a little bit different. But I think in terms of the form, unless the softer compounds turns it into a pit stop fest, I can't see any changes happening at the front. So I'm pretty sure it's going to be another Mercedes, and I think you'll be a brave man to bet against Lewis Hamilton.
I think so. I think the only thing that come into also is the weather. They are expecting it to be hotter again next week. The tyres weren't working so well in the heat in practice. Maybe that could come and sort of muck things around a bit. Mercedes, let's forget about them. They're dominant 30 seconds up the road. But the midfield battle, I think, is where it's at this season, and it's been entertaining to watch, very close between them. So yeah, I hope they do mix it up a bit next week. But that's it from us for now. Viewers, as I say, do like and subscribe. It supports what we do. And we'll be catching up with you, of course, next week for our chat after the Grand Prix as well. But that's it from us for now. As ever, more soon. Hello viewers, well thanks for watching the video today. Do like and subscribe, it supports what we do. Do become a YouTube member. YouTube Patreon supports all of our content you see on the channel, and of course lots of gaming from retro to modern games. I love it all in terms of racing action. So click on one of the two videos just there to find out more.